That's really, maybe I should start doing that. Hello, guys. Stand by for a quick intro.
Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast with Nicholas Camby.
Get out of here, Abby. I'm your host, Nicholas Camby, and this is episode 84 with Josh Spurgeon of the USA. In his short career so far in Strongman, he's accomplished some great things. He made the OSG finals 2 years in a row. He took third at the Arnold Amateur last year and also won the Shaw Classic Open, which grants him an invite to the strongest man on earth at this year's contest in Colorado. So let's sit down with this static monster and talk all things Strongman and his plans for 2025 prior to the strongest man on earth, and what does he have in store for us in the community? Let's find out on today's episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast with Joshua Spurgeon. Today's episode is sponsored by TsunamiBarSports.com, and Camby shirts are still available at oddobjects.co. And if you're enjoying all the episodes, consider supporting the show and becoming a member and getting access to exclusive videos brought to you by Camby Dude. And without further ado, here is Mr. Josh Spurgeon of the USA. All right. And we're live. Hello, Joshua. How are you?
Good, Camby. Nice to see you. How's it going?
I'm doing well. My wife wanted to hop into the episode and do a little bit of the part of the intro, but I couldn't let her do the whole thing. But
yeah, that's pretty cool. I figured that might have been your missus, but I wasn't sure.
Yes. But yeah, she got her quick appearance. But to start off the show, was Santa good to you?
Yeah, he is every year. I'm always on the good boy list.
Any lifting related presents this year?
I might have treated myself before OSG to some new lifters and trainers, and then I got some new runners all from tier afterwards. And my fiance actually got me a really nice, I think it's a dog sled from Rogue, so you can kind of do a couple different things with it. But it's a sled with, you can buy some attachments, and it's gonna be really useful for training.
Oh, interesting. Now the tier, I got a pair of tier shoes for Christmas, but I got the carbon fiber lifters. Have you tried those yet?
No, I couldn't justify the price just yet, but if you tell me that they're great, I can justify it. I just haven't met or seen anybody with them that I trust yet.
I'm still testing it out. The only thing is, I've done this twice on the tiers, is that like I'm a size 12, but I feel like their size 12 is a little like off compared to other size 12. So like my feet feel cramped in it. So I'm trying to figure out if it's me or is just like, is this heavyweight Camby and I'm no longer a 12 and I'm a 12 and a half. So I'm trying to figure out if it's me or the shoe.
I usually buy 13s and I buy 13s there. And I think I could get by with a 12, but I think like if I get a 12 and a half, it'd be perfect that tier. I think they run a little small, but maybe my foot's wide.
All right. So it's not, maybe it's not just me. But you know, I was thinking before the show, have you, your friends back at home, the training crew, have you guys figured out a nickname for yourself yet?
I knew this might come up, and no one's came up with a nickname yet. I figured you might come up with something here, but Connor Gordon out of Sweaty Pig has desperately been trying to get something to stick.
The Sweaty, I think he chimed in to Lucas's episode, and he wanted to do the old ham steak for Lucas, but no one's called you the Josh the Spurgeon yet.
No one says anything about Sturgeon because there's actually another amateur athlete. His name is Sturgeon Anderson up in he trains where Lucas trains.
Out of the dungeon. Oh, interesting. All right. Yep. So you don't want to be an ancient fish.
No, I think he already has that covered. So, but I also am not. You can't really pick your nickname. I feel like it just happens.
It is, except if you're Brian and you want to be called
That's
gigantic.
True.
Yeah. That was a fun. I think that was 2017, but that was fun. But yeah, anything in the comments, of course, people put it in. But since this is the first year of the episode, of course, usually you start out with the year, of course, New Year's resolutions and different goals. But have you set out kind of a New Year's resolution goals for yourself when it comes to lifting and strongman?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I haven't made a post yet, but I've been thinking about what to say. Really, I kind of took a social media break. I was still on it, but I didn't post anything after OSG. I just kind of wanted a mental break. But you kind of reflect and look back on 2024, the year in the past, and you kind of see what you could have improved on, what you did well on, and what you could do better on. And so one of my biggest flaws is probably recovery, and that kind of pulls in like diet as well. Really, just like if I could fix two things that I think would massively improve me, would be sleep and diet. And my diet's not terrible, but it could always be better.
All right, so is it more just being kind of always kind of prepared? Like I kind of go through my week sometimes. So when I'm on, I usually am making regular trips to Costco and prepping all my food. But a lot of times it's the trips in between trips, I'll run out of food or run out of frozen goods, and then I kind of scramble and just do what's easy in between then. And that's when I get into maybe the pizzas and the subs and everything else.
Is exactly me. Honestly, I can go to Sam's Club, but if I don't do the math and I don't buy all the stuff and I run out, say Thursday, well then, it's Friday, Saturday, I go on Sundays, I kind of am lackluster a couple days every week. Like Monday through Thursday, I'm like perfect, except for my sleep's messed up those days. And then it like switches towards the weekend. Sleep's great and diet lacks a little. It's because I'm not in as good of a routine, I would say.
Interesting. But you're a Sam's Clubs guy?
Yeah, it's what's close. The Costco.
All right. Well, this is a Costco podcast, so I think the podcast is over. Thank you for coming. Right. But I haven't been to Sam's Clubs in a bit, but still, bulk meat is, I think, kind of the way to go. I think most of what I buy is, or that's where I get all my red meat from. But now about sleep, are you just up at night? Are you playing video games, watching Squid Game?
No, honestly. So I work longer hours Monday through Thursday, and then I have a half day on Friday. And so I get up about 5:30 and I'm at work by 6. And then after work, so I work 6:30 to 4. Then I commute to the gym. I'm there about 5. And then, that commute can sometimes take 20 minutes. It sometimes can take an hour and a half. It just depends on the traffic in the city, what's going on, things like that. So it's very hard to almost be consistent with that aspect of it. And then I train until I'm done. So sometimes I get home at, 8 o'clock. If I'm in prep, like for Shaw and OSG, I was getting home like between 8 and 9, and say I go to bed at 10:30, I'm still only sleeping maybe 7 hours at most.
Now, are you, because I think I was talking to James Deffenbach about this, is that like after a big lift, sometimes you get the adrenaline pumps and it's really hard to go to sleep after. It's almost like the same kind of feeling after a contest. You can't really go to sleep just because, the adrenaline kind of coursing through your veins the whole day. But is that kind of a component? Because that usually kind of messes me up, especially like hit a nice PR or like I hit exactly what I want to hit on a difficult day. But can you relate?
Yeah, I definitely can. If my fiance can attest to this, like say I hit a big deadlift, I'll be tired, like physically, but my mind is still awake. So like I can sit on the couch and like look like a zombie, but I like can't fall asleep yet. I like need to like almost relax or cool down, or I just need to. I usually say I need to wind down. That's usually what I say.
No, interesting. But speaking, so fiance, when's the wedding?
I'm not sure, honestly. We got engaged in October, so we're still trying to figure things out. And living in Louisiana, but we're from Ohio, it's kind of difficult to plan things.
All right. Interesting. You guys want to go back? Are you guys both from Ohio?
Yeah, she's from Dayton, Ohio, and I'm from Napoleon, Ohio.
Okay. All right. Well, I should have known because I pulled up your football profile. But so you guys looking to go back to Ohio for the wedding?
I think eventually, yeah, eventually.
Cool. Well, very exciting time. I remember, of course, my wife and I planned the wedding. Of course, we had a great time, and we did it, of course, at my parents' place. So it was very magical. So I hope you guys have a very magical wedding as well. But speaking about other plans, we're going into the off season now. So you're about a month post OSG, but like, how's the body feeling?
From the show, I feel good. Honestly, I've had an ongoing issue with my knees since I don't know, starting Strongman really. It was from my last powerlifting meet. Honestly, I got really strong really fast, and my tendons just couldn't keep up. So I had really bad tendon health in my knees. And I've had this issue for over 2 years now, because it started in the fall of 20. It was about 2 years ago in the fall it started, but it was my first show when I did OSG regional. But so Monday I actually am going to go in and get PRP for both my patellar tendons, and hopefully that'll promote some healing and bring it back to life.
All right, interesting. So for anybody that doesn't know what PRP is, so the platelets enriched plasma. And of course, they take your blood, they run it through a centrifuge, and then they put it back in there, and it's supposed to increase the healing properties. So, yeah, that'll be I'll be interesting in terms of how that affects your knees. So, of course, keep us, of course, updated. But so you said that's on Monday?
Yeah, Monday after work. I will get that done. I scheduled it before Christmas, but just with the way with traveling back home and things like that, that was the quickest I could get in.
Now, what's the recovery after? How long do you have to kind of chill?
With
that?
They said, and I'm going to put this loosely, they said return to competition 6 to 8 weeks. But I think that's a stretch. I don't like, I'm not saying I'm going to go squat 700 pounds in 2 weeks, but I think like I'll have full range of motion within a week, but I just can't like overload my knees. And because tendonitis, it's overworking your tendons repeatedly. So they kind of want me to take it easy and just work back into it, which I'm not in a rush for anything. So I don't see why I couldn't.
All right. Interesting. But of course, I think there's so many athletes that have, of course, done that. I think I want to say Maxime and Sam Bellevue, I think they came through Boston. They were going all the way to Washington, D.C. maybe, but they came somewhere in the Northeast to get some PRP done. But it's kind of a regular thing. I've yet to do it, but I've always admired even like seeing like Zadrunas or Martins, even not necessarily just PRP, but like going the next step, like getting stem cells all the way in Colombia. That's, of course, I always find that interesting and see what the effects are. But I remember talking to Zadrunas at last year's Arnold, and he said that he feels better now than he did competing in his 30s. So maybe. Wow. But he's not competing. But if I think he was feeling really good, he'd be going at it. But we'll see. But in terms of like the offseason, so like once, of course, you're kind of cleared to go and feeling a little better after the PRP, what's your offseason look like, and kind of where are some goals?
So I talked with Laws competition wise, and if there was going to be anything to do before Strongest Man on Earth, it'd be the Arnold. But I just don't think getting the PRP and only having maybe a couple week prep, it just wouldn't be smart to go, and it'd almost be just negative, towards the Strongest Man on Earth. I don't think it would be anything positive towards my career. I just don't think it's worth the risk per se, or physically or financially at this point. So I think the next thing on the list would be Strongest Man on Earth in August.
All right, so kind of put in a huge prep. Now, so like for instance, like have you like chatted like a little bit like what you're gonna do during the time? You're gonna go kind of through maybe like a hypertrophy phase and then like a power block. Have you kind of thought that far yet?
Maybe not pen on paper thought that far, but we spoke about, we're going to try and recomp. We're going to try and fix my diet. We're going to get all of the things besides for actual prep for it kind of sorted before then. So then when prep comes around, I can just change and instantly go into it and feel good. And I have to try to do everything at once, because it's kind of how the last shows have been. They've all been about 3-4 months apart. By the time you finish one, you start prepping for the next one. And it's kind of hard to prep for something and fix all your other, the little things that maybe don't mean as much as, lifting all the heavy weights, but they do go into it and they will make a difference, at a show like SMO.
All right. Interesting. But yeah, that'll be pretty exciting, especially when of course the events come out and the rosters. But of course, you're probably you and probably Mitch are probably the only ones that are guaranteed locks. Everything else is probably like up in the air, or maybe the podium is automatically back. But like, I would say they started figuring out like the smaller roster a little bit after Worlds, right? So we won't really find out until like May or June.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm sure we could look on Instagram and find out the exact date when they announced it. The athlete's going to know a week or two before. But I looked at last year's roster versus the World's Strongest Man finalists, and I'm almost positive maybe 9 or 10, maybe all of them, all the finalists went to the Strongest Man on Earth.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, I imagine a lot keep by, and then I imagine like maybe like Mateus. I know he tore his ACL. Um, I think potentially if he stays healthy, he could be a show like that if he wanted to.
Oh, for sure.
But I think last year he was just like I think he got invited, but they said something along the lines of he's gonna wait to see how his body feels. He wanted to at least make it there. So sometimes that's half the battle. But of course we were teasing a little bit. So we were talking a little bit in terms of like I wasn't exactly sure, but of course I took a look back. I know when we first met at OSG last year. I know you like came from powerlifting, but like, how did you originally get into strongman, and like what kind of inspired you to start lifting heavy things off the ground?
So lifting heavy kind of started in high school. Really, I mean, I played football. You know, just like everybody else probably in the sport of strongman played football if they were able to. I played football in high school. I wanted to play in college. Of course, like when I was in high school, I was watching, you know, Prime, Brian, Thor, and Eddie compete at World's Strongest Man. And I was like, oh man, that's pretty cool. You know, I'll probably never be able to do that. But, you know, at the time I was like, that's pretty cool. And so then I, you know, went through the football route, played a couple years at University of Toledo, and it just I wasn't quite getting what I wanted out of it. And my academics weren't keeping up with how they should have been. I kind of made a life decision. I was like, hey, I'm not going to the NFL. I need to figure out school. So I focused on school, and, you know, that took up a lot of time. So I was like, oh, you know, I'll never lift heavy again. I started lifting, and then at the rec center, I saw some power lifters, and I was like, oh, you know, I'll try that. And of course, you know, I wore like no belt, no sleeves, no nothing for my first meet. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And, you know, it doesn't take too much time. And so I trained powerlifting all through college, and I still watched strongman. I still enjoyed it, but I didn't really know how to get into it. There wasn't like necessarily like strongman gym near me. There was a couple athletes, but they were kind of, you know, there was an age difference, so it was a little intimidating at the time to speak with them or anything. And then, you know, one day I was like, oh man, you know, I'm pretty good at powerlifting. I got pretty strong, and it's like, I think I can do this. And this was around the first time. My last powerlifting meet was in June, and a month before this, Brian hosted the online amateur for his show. And I was like, oh, well, this would be cool to do. I think, you know, it was like, I think a max log, max farmers, and maybe a max deadlift, you know, of some sort. I was like, you know, I think I can do this. I picked up some farmers. So like, oh, that's not too bad. And, you know, I can deadlift. My press will probably suffer, but maybe I can get in. And I was like, no, I just need to focus and, you know, finish my powerlifting, you know, career. And so I did my last meet. You know, I watched the Shaw Amateur, and I didn't really know anything about strongman. I kind of was just figuring it all on my own. So I was like, went into Google and was like, how do you get to World's Strongest Man? And then you started backtracing. It's like, oh, go to official or go to Giants Live. It's like, okay, well, how do you get to Giants Live? Oh, go to official strongman games. How do you get there? So eventually I wound up, and my first show was Dungeon hosted it. It was I think 22 or 23. It was their regional in August, and I got second at it. And so then I qualified for OSG, and it was the year of the hurricane and everything. So they canceled all my travel plans, and then Lynn invited me back. So I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. So that's how I got there the following year. But then after that, I mean, I would have got embarrassed. I should not have even like thought about going to OSG. I would have finished like 40th or something, you know, bottom 10. And so I did my goal without really going. I really wanted to like just get re-invited to not have to do another meet and save money. So the spring came up, and I was like, okay, well, how do you get to the Arnold? And so I ended up calling Josh from 580 Barbell, and he told me, oh, you know, this is how you do it. You got to come to my show. I was like, okay, well, how do I get to your show? You got to do this. So I checked all the boxes in Strongman Corporation, made it to the Arnold, and, you know, and that kind of brings me up to this year.
All right, excellent. Couple brings. Was University of Toledo, was that D1?
Yes. Yeah. I was just a walk-on though, so nothing special.
All right. So of course I saw defensive tackle and all. Are you ever gonna bring back the long hair?
I don't think I can anymore.
No.
I might be going the other way. I might be bald soon.
All right. So the opposite way. Well, maybe there's PRP for your hair, or maybe some treatments.
Or something in Turkey I think I can do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So did you ever play against any like D1 athletes, or not D1 athletes, but NFL prospects or NFL guys?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I even before college, I went to an all-star game and I played with like Luke Farrell. I went to Ohio State, Gavin Cupp, and I mean, they were basically everyone in that show was going to a D1 school somewhere, and most of them were on full rides. But then when I got to college, I played with Kareem Hunt. He was the running back when I was a
Oh,
freshman.
really? Yeah, of course.
Logan Woodside. He went with the tight ends. Marquise was going to go. He tore his Achilles at Pro Day. And then there's a couple. There's a receiver. He got drafted to the Steelers. And even a couple of people from maybe 2 years ago that got drafted. Samuel Womack and Tyson Anderson's at the Bengals. So there's a handful, mostly skill athletes though, not too many linemen.
I saw of course I was taking a look at your powerlifting totals and all, but did you ever try a competition? Not competition. How do I want to say this? Like, did you ever do a like an NFL combine, or did you ever attempt the 225 bench challenge for AMRAP?
So the 225, I never did it. I might have did it in college, but I don't remember my number. And I really don't remember my number, but I did it at a show. I did it at the OSG regional. Lucas had one of the events was bench 225 for reps. And I think I want to say I would have got upper 20s, maybe give it somewhere around 30, I want to say. I think I was just below 30. I think Adam Rockwell won with like 42 or something. It was crazy.
Wow. All right. Because I was telling you a little bit about I was working out with Ethan Erickson today, who of course out in the East Coast visiting his girlfriend, and we got a session at Titan. But he said he hit 65 practice working on that bench total. Crazy. Yeah, so I feel like that's upper epsilon. So of course,
a record.
What a little bit. So if he can hit it, let's just say he gets the opportunity to go to the NFL Combine, I think is pretty big. But I think he was mentioning that some of the not scouts, but some of the coaches at some of the or O-line coaches are saying that he's a little too small for their program or something.
Height is a big deal.
He's like
too short.
Yeah, he's saying 6'1". He's like 6'1", probably, and then maybe like 280. But yeah, he's thinking about putting on some size. But he was mentioning there's the Alabama center right now is like 5'11", 270, which is pretty wild.
That's a unicorn.
Yeah, that is very unicorn. But back to your powerlifting totals. So I was taking a look. So I've had a few powerlifters on. So I've had like Luke Richardson on. Of course, I've had John Hack on during the summer. I think John Hack's that new total he hit is like 2,300, right? If I didn't look up before the show.
Don't remember what he hit, but I know it's like the best dots for a male. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I want to say with you and Raps, you beat Luke Richardson's best raw total by like 20 pounds. And then so I think right now you're like the second best powerlifting total that I've had on the show. I'm pretty sure. I want to say I've had
I'm second to John Hack. That's pretty good if I say something. So
yeah, absolutely. I was taking a look. I think I forgot to screenshot it, but some pretty good numbers. So pretty impressive. But now, did you enjoy your powerlifting days, or did you think that like Strongman was way more appetizing and entertaining?
I enjoyed powerlifting, but I think it's because of who I lifted with.
Sure. Yeah.
My only regret, I mean, it's not really a regret, but I wish when I was powerlifting, I would have did bigger meets. I just did what the people at the gym were doing, which is nothing wrong with that. But I think if I wanted to pursue powerlifting, the next step was to do bigger meets that not necessarily had cash prizes, but more notoriety, like Ghost Clash, things like that. Just more of those exhibition shows.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Now, do you have to get invited to those shows?
I think you have to have a certain dots, and then I'm sure they reserve certain spots. Like John Hack's invited to every powerlifting show ever. There's certain names. Dan Bell's invited to everything. But I think you had to have a certain dots to qualify for like their pro day or amateur day.
Well, what is dots again? Is that like the Wilkes version, or is that different?
It's the Wilkes version that's more fair between all the classes. So Wilkes very favored just lifting heavy, didn't really care about body weight. So once you reached a certain body weight, it didn't really matter. Where dots actually takes into account of your body weight more heavily.
Okay, all right. Oh, interesting. But yeah, we have a good line of listeners today. So hello, Mr. Greek Goliath. Good to see you. Of course. Hello, Brad. Brad's a regular guest. Dylan, thank you. Davio, thank you. Joseph, thank you for all for tuning in. So we talked a little bit. We mentioned before, kind of like the lead up. But like ideally, like for instance, like I imagine the Shot Classic might have like another huge like deadlift. Like, do you want to like try to like pull 1,000 pounds or pull upwards or close be prior, or you just think you're gonna give it to Laws and you'll guide you? But like, what you're thinking?
I will honestly say I give my full faith in Laws. I don't really do anything he doesn't tell me to. Like I don't do anything that he doesn't tell me to do. I don't go off the program really. I'll call audibles. Like if my knees are hurting, I'm not going to squat. I'll just go on to the next exercise. I know squats can flare them up sometimes. So if they're already, I work up to 315 and it's like excruciating, I'll just go on to the next exercise, things like that. Or, go over to leg press, something that's not as, intensive on the patellas. But hopefully leading the show, I won't have to do anything like that. And I can really just stay 100% to what he wants me to do. But I've yet to quote unquote max effort my deadlift so far. I like for a single, I would say at OSG that 6 reps, I don't know if I would have got 7. I might have blacked out. But as for like a single, I haven't maxed. The most I pulled was actually leading into the Arnold last year from the floor. I pulled 885 raw with like no hitching. I didn't pull a single elevated pull for that show, and I think that was a very similar pull to like Shaw's.
Oh, interesting. So it'll be curious, but we're gonna have to run a quick commercial break. But I want to talk a little more about deadlifting when we get there.
Sure.
I want to really kind of break it down, especially when we have great deadlifters on the show. But quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Are you ready to shake up your training? Are you ready for your next challenge? Tsunami Bar Sports is here to boost your power, stability, and coordination. Whether you're superloading and using it to target barbell-centric movements or using it for ballistic weighted plyometrics for more sport-specific purposes, the Tsunami Bar has you covered. Our patented flexible barbell technology is designed to help you improve in all things human performance. Discover the difference at Tsunami Bar Sports today. Visit tsunamisports.com to learn more. Use CAMBY10 for 10% off of any Tsunami Bar product, or pause the screen and use the QR code. Now back to the show. Have you got floppy yet? Have you tried the Tsunami Bar?
No, I've only tried the bamboo bar. I have not tried a Tsunami Bar yet.
All right. Well, of course, it's all the cool kids are doing it, so maybe something to consider. But going back to the deadlifts, I think for the listeners that you guys are tuning in, so this year Josh won the deadlift at the Arnold, won the deadlift at the Shot Classic Open, and then won the deadlift at OSG. So pretty easy to say that you're the best deadlifter up and coming out there. So what's the secret, or what's your philosophy when it comes to deadlifting and making a good deadlift and making a big deadlift?
I kind of break it down, and I've made videos privately. I've never really posted a tutorial, but when people that I get close to kind of ask me this question, I'll record a little video and send it to them. But I always line up, midfoot, pull, bring your shin to the bar. You want to think bend the bar, don't just grab it. I always say bend the bar. Whenever you're squat, bench, or deadlift, you always just want to pretend you're bending the bar, and then kind of sit back. Your starting position is unique for everybody, and engage your lats and pull. There's to me, it came very naturally. And I've pulled sumo, I've pulled conventional, went back and forth and everything like that. I've always been pretty good at deadlift. So I'd say Laz really hasn't ever really coached me on technique for deadlift. It was something that kind of just came naturally.
Now, when you say bend the bar, is more like kind of like bending the bar around you so you engage your lats, like all your lats? Is that the cue?
Yeah. So I always think bend the bar, and it also helps you take the slack out as well. So even when you're overhead pressing a barbell, unless you're doing suicide grip, you want to think bend the bar as well. It's the same principle there.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Now, in terms of either programming or just steps throughout the year and to get your deadlift bigger, do you have a favorite variation?
I really just like pulling from the floor. I like the standard deadlift. I haven't experienced too much with pause reps. I do like banded deadlifts, bands from the floor, so it's harder resistant at the top for lockout. And sometimes Laws will have me do bands, from above, and it's just really to feel heavier weight in hand, feel what it feels like on your CNS. I know I did that a couple times leading into. I think I did that once leading into the Arnold and once leading into the Shaw, just to kind of feel what I think I pulled maybe up 9 something, for those, just to see what it felt like.
All right, interesting. Now, when it comes to, let's just say, like a weekly, were you like, for instance, like even like building up to your deadlift, even when you're like kind of like first starting out, were you deadlifting like once a week? What, deadlifting twice a week? Would you ever have like a volume day or a speed day? Do you ever mix those things up?
So when I was powerlifting, I had this weird little, I don't want to say injury, but almost like aggravation in the middle of my back. So I would deadlift and squat on opposite weeks. So I was only deadlifting and squatting once every other week. But since switching with Laws and getting into Strongman, right now I actually have 2 deadlift days. One's like an accessory, kind of do whatever you want, 3x10. And we're keeping everything moderately light right now anyways. It's more, a muscle or hypertrophy phase. And then leading into prep, though, he'll have me do speed doubles, speed triples, after I pull some heavy weights. Or it'll be 1 week is speed, next week is standard, speed. So it's kind of every other week, so you're not taxing yourself every week.
All right, interesting. Now, what would be like a couple tidbits that, like, for instance, a lot of amateurs and, of course, weight class athletes listen to the show. What would you tell them in terms of like improving the deadlifts? Like, what would you what you would recommend?
This is going to hurt a lot of people, but don't use figure eights. Just stop using figure eights. That's a great piece. Personally, I don't like them personally. I pull worse with them. I know with like axles, you have to use them. Maybe with, a Hummer tire deadlift, the weight's so heavy you want to use them. But I've never been a fan of them. I don't really like them. I'll use them if I have to, but I pull better using regular straps.
Why do you think that is?
I think I can engage my lats better. I can get my hands tighter to the bar, so I can actually feel like I'm squeezing the bar versus just letting it be kind of held there on my fingertips.
I've had other buddies mention that in the past, like it's hard to get the lat engagement. And I've been throwing on a lot of figure eights, and I was even going to do on my secondary deadlift day, I was even going to do like a band pulling the bar away so I can start working on engagement. But maybe I could do that exercise, but just lose the figure eights. I think that's a good piece. Of course, they are going away in a lot of contests, like the Shaw Open probably won't have figure eights, just figure nines. So interesting. I think that's a pretty good tidbit. But we talked a little about, of course, working with Coach Laws or Uncle Laws. So are you Team Laws or Team Liz?
I'm Team Laws. Liz doesn't like me enough for that yet.
Yeah. All right. So you've been working with them for a little bit over a year. But like, what are some like takeaways that you learned from like the legend himself?
I've been working with him about 2 years now.
2 years.
It's been quite a while. Honestly, I'll tell you the biggest thing about Laws that matters to a lot of people that may not think about it when they go to hire him is he actually genuinely cares about you. At the end of the day, you're a human being and he cares about you being a human being. Strongman's cool and all, but he cares about your life first. So he's never gonna, have you do something or put you in a situation that, you may second guess yourself. If you're not comfortable with it, he's not going to force you to do it. He'll find an alternative, whether, and that can just be for exercising. If you don't feel comfortable squatting 1,000 pounds and no one's at the gym, he's not going to make you do it, So things like that.
Interesting. So I imagine he's a problem solver per se.
He's very adaptable. And I think that's one of the key things that people need to get better at in Strongman. A lot of them are like, oh, I have to use this bar, I have to use this. Like, it's nice if you can get as close as you can to the competition. It's perfect. That's the best case scenario. You're the most prepared you can ever be. But in a lot of real life situations, that's not impossible for a lot of athletes. You kind of just make do with what you do. And like I lift stones outside, and that probably has hindered my stone progress a little bit just because of the weather.
Oh, interesting. Is that So I was one of the videos that was in the intro is you kind of deadlifting a bunch of bars with the stones at the end. Is that where you train regularly?
Yeah, it's called the West Bank Athletic Club. It's located in, I think it's off Bellchase Highway. It's in Gretna, Louisiana, so it's right below the Mississippi. And yeah, it's a great place. I mean, they have literally, if you want to train and you're in Louisiana or especially near New Orleans, that's the gym to go to. They have just about anything that you could possibly want. And if you're a member like me and you ask a little bit and you're a nice guy and everyone likes you, and you help out the gym, he'll accommodate you as best he can. He tries to accommodate everybody. That's his philosophy.
Sure. But those bars, those pretty. So was the owner like a huge Strongman fan, like, or just wanted to make cool stuff? Was that like for a contest one time and then just kind of stored it in the back, or what's
So there is some sentimental attachment to those barbells. I don't want to misspeak, but I think they were his best friends. Like he owned a gym. His name's Bumley, owned a gym, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but he owned a gym. But he passed away in a tragic accident, and he owned those barbells. And Bum, took care of them, took them in, kind of absorbed them. And so he always loves it when someone can pull on them. And when I did those deadlifts, it was on the the memorial passing.
All right. Oh, very cool. Now, what's the heaviest bar with the Atlas stones on the end?
I think it's like 970-ish. I think
I
only pulled 880. I want to say because the 970 had some stuff on top of it.
Oh, interesting. Has anybody pulled the 970 before?
I don't think so. Maybe one person.
That's pretty crazy.
I don't think so. I think there was one other person that used to train at the WAC that had a really good deadlift.
That's pretty wild just to have a piece of implement that no one's lifted, or even only one person's lifted.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. But kind of going back to Atlas stones outside, that also, of course, since so much, let's just say even all your events this year were all inside, right? So like think about applying tacky, of course, that's a huge other kind of component. And what do you do if it's raining? You get it pushed on to the next day?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like if it's raining, maybe I'll just go load sandbags instead. I have some heavy sandbags. It's similar movements, but the technique is a little different. So maybe that's hindered my progress some. I know I'm fully capable to load a heavy stone. I mean, I've only trained stones a couple times leading into Shaw, and I think the most I loaded was like a 375. And so I did 350, 375, 425, and I picked the 450, and I just didn't have enough juice to load it at Shaw.
All right, interesting. Now, do you enjoy stoning? Like outside of deadlifting, what's like one of your favorite events?
I'd say anything grip related. I'm a big fan of farmers, but grip related events, I actually really like. True grip related events, I actually really like.
All right, interesting. Did you ever try the Denny handles or the nickel stone replicas?
Yeah, I bought some from.
We did it. We did it at OSG. Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we did it at OSG, and then we had it at the Arnold as well too.
Oh, that's right. Cool. So a grip master. That's pretty interesting. But let's move it over to Joseph for a second. Out of the SMO events from previous years, what events would you like to see come back to this year, and what would you like as well? The heavy stones, chest press, car leg press.
I would like to see the chest press come back. I really would. I used to bench a lot, and I think I would enjoy it. And I don't bench as frequently right now, but if that came back, I feel like it'd give me something to down memory lane a little bit, benching wise. Things I'll do well. I hope it's I hope it's the same deadlift as last year. A standard deadlift, 3 attempts. You kind of got to call your weight. I would really enjoy that, and then I'd really enjoy the chest press. As for car leg press, if my knees don't hurt anymore, I would love it. I used to have really strong legs, so
I bet they're pretty strong. Yeah, you had a 900-pound squat in reps. Is that your best squat in the meet? And then
904.
And then benching wise, was it 585 I saw in competition?
No, I think it was like 540-ish, somewhere around.
All right,
I want to say.
All right, only one plate off, so not too shabby, but 540 is still pretty strong bench. Now, it should be interesting because you know that Brian likes to make big contraptions for the show. It's almost try to compete with the Rogue when they make like huge items like the Wheel of Pain and even like the what they did for the Rogue, like the Rogue coaster. So it would be interesting if he kind of pulls anything out. What's your take on the squad event from last year? Do you think it was a good iteration to kind of mix it up, or you think it was a tough one because like half the field kind of failed? I think it was cool. But I think they missed the weight by like 50 pounds. I'm not really sure.
I think the whole quote unquote problem with that was the crowd expecting something when it was a different lift. They looked at it and saw like Smith machine squat, when in reality, it was squat it or lift it. I shouldn't even say squat, lift it from point A to point B. And when you get the light or the down signal, keep going. And it's one rep at a time. It's no different than like a Viking press. You lock it out, you put it back down, you lock it out, you put it back down. So I think, Hooper got some backlash just because of the way it looked. And some other people maybe were squatting a little bit too perfect for it. There was a squat event at the Amateur Arnold this year, and it was weird. It was a kabuki trap bar set up on like a Viking press. And I tried to squat it like normal, and I'm a pretty good squatter, and I got maybe, I don't know, fifth or something on it, when I probably should have got first or second on it. But I was trying to do it like a normal squat, and it felt like a hack squat, and it really agitated my knees. But if I would have just put my feet a little bit farther back, I want to say, I could have just did like hyperextensions, and it would have been more back, and I could have got more reps. So it's not cheating or anything per se. It's just manipulating the event in your favor.
Because it was on a lever, right? Because I've done something similar where I've squatted on like kind of a lever press, so it's almost a different item, but yeah, it can be really tough. Like for instance, and this is a good maybe segue to what grinds your gears. What grinded my gears in 2021. So we did this car squat in Russia, and the bar was loose, so it had like a fixture, a fixture, and the bar was loose in between there. So when I got to the bottom of the car squat, and of course at that time I was always still squatting heels, and of course a little bit kind of like an Olympic squat, because that's what I kind of just tended to do. But I would squat, and at the bottom of that car squat, all the weight would come off at the bottom, and then when I get back started coming back up, all the weight would come back on. So I ended up getting only like 2 reps in the winter, got like 13, but the rest of the show I was getting like for either first, second, or third. Right. So that killed my point total. Right. But that really grinded my gears at the time, because they had like a really loose car squat setup. But for all the listeners and for yourself, what grinds your gears? What gets you're a pretty humble, nice guy, but like, is there anything that kind of just agitates you at the gym or looking on Instagram these days?
My number one pet peeve used to be that everyone was a coach nowadays, but I think nowadays it's even simpler. It's just the rule of like, pick up after yourself. Like, there's no reason to leave your trash on the floor, leave your weights out. And I don't know about you with your shows you've done, but I mean, you could tell. I think it was Arnold. I mean, it's kind of a mess everywhere, you can't really say. But Shaw really bothered me that, like, we're not really there for anybody other than ourselves. Like, there's no reason Brian is putting that show on other than that he loves the sport and wants to give somebody an opportunity and give back. The real reason that whole show goes on is for the pro athletes. And there was just, chairs everywhere, trash everywhere. We ran over, and no one picking up after themselves. So that kind of really grinded my gears when I got done, and I was almost one of the last ones to leave every day because I, ice bath, I had family in town and stuff. And, there's just trash and chairs, and it's just a mess. And then the pro athletes that are actually, there to put on a show and, be there for the public and everything have to deal with it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I would say that's a good point. You do want to kind of clean up, or at least put things, get tied up away. Yeah. So yeah, for amateurs that are going next year. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I had another good one for you. I had a great one. I was almost gonna pull it up and do like a whole piece, but I couldn't. No. I thought about it the whole day, and I I couldn't think of it. So that's gonna grind. I think that's my new kind of. That's gonna grind my own gears. But I'll message you once I think of it.
Okay.
So of course we're kind of wrapping up. So if you guys have any additional questions for Josh, put them in the comments now. But like, what are you looking to get out of Strongman? Like, for instance, like when everything's said and done, what are you looking to accomplish in the world of Strongman?
It would be cool, and it's definitely a goal to compete at the 4 major shows. You know, Arnold, Worlds, Strongest Man on Earth obviously is coming up, and then the Rogue Invitational. I think will be capable or more than capable of competing at all of them and being competitive. So when it's all said and done, I want to be at least, hit the 4 big shows. But truthfully, honestly, like I don't really care about social media. I don't really care about all the sponsorships and stuff. Like I still have a career. This is really just a hobby. I truly just want to see how big, how strong, how athletic I can be, myself. Like I truly want to look back and say, I gave it my all.
All right, excellent. Now, as the 4 major shows, of course, you got to check off, of course, Strongest Man on Earth. But what's the next one you really want to do out of those 3?
I think next would be the Arnold, and I think I have a bias towards that just because Strongest Man on Earth and the Arnold are more statically heavy. So I think I'll just enjoy those more. But obviously, Worlds and Rogue are still really competitive.
Absolutely, but they're all, of course, all pretty have their own different style and all.
Right.
But speak of the Arnold, did you go to the Arnold a lot since you grew up in Ohio? Did you ever go there as a kid, or was it a thing when you were a kid?
It was definitely a thing. My parents never took me. I remember my brother going. He's about 5.5 years older than me. I remember being in high school, and he went down there, and he always came home with a bunch of free shakers and pre-workout, and anything he could possibly get from a booth and put it into a little backpack. But then in college, I went a couple times with my fiance, and then I obviously competed there last year. So I think I've been there 2 or 3 times now.
All right. Oh, excellent. Now, are you chewing at all of coming to the Arnold this year and just checking it out?
We talked about it, actually. We talked about flying up because, it would give us an opportunity to see some of our friends and family possibly too. So being in Columbus, it's not that far away from where we lived.
All right, cool. Well, I'll be headed over there, so hopefully we'll see you there, and we can catch up even more. But it's I always say if anybody that's listening, they haven't been to the Arnold, and of course you're really interested in strength sports, I think it's usually I always say seeing is believing. So you always see guys online or guys on TV doing great things, but when you see it in person and then able to see different details, even get the opportunity to see even some of the amateurs kind of warm up and do really well, then it kind of puts in a plain picture that it's a little more in reach than it was maybe otherwise. Maybe you thought in the past it's impossible to get to that point, but once you get to the Arnolds and see these guys, and then you're not only looking at for just strongman, but just for powerlifting and bodybuilding. So I always say it's very inspirational, and really drove me, really inspired me when I went in 2015. That's when I realized like I wanted to do the sport. So I think this year will be my 7th Arnold. So I've competed 5 times, and then last year I of course just kind of enjoyed and kind of worked, and this year I'm working. Well, this year I don't know if I can say it yet, but I'm gonna be. I guess I don't think I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'm gonna be in the animal cage. Max log in the animal cage.
That's pretty cool.
So Nadia did it last year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if I'm gonna do log in the animal cage, like what's a number that is respectable for heavyweight strongman? I think it has to be 200 kilos. I think there's.
I was gonna say, is it a single or is it reps?
It's just what do you want to do in the animal cage? Is pretty much the guy came up to him. I'm like, I think I got to hit a single at least 200 kilos. What do you think?
It's got to be around 200 kilos, give or take. Depending upon what they have there, I think it's got to be around there.
So they're sponsored by Rogue. So I imagine it's going to be on a Rogue log. So 135 empty. So I think it'd be pretty easy to load up those weights and have 2.5. So I think I have to go for 200 kilos or bust. So, and I thought it kind of worked out with, of course, I just got the invite back to Europe's. I think it works out because I need to shake off the rust after not competing for almost over a year. So I think that would be a good way to kind of do a showcase and compete in. And of course the log. So something I'm pretty familiar with. So I'm pretty excited.
This will be your first thing back after injury, right?
It is. So
Yeah.
it's because I always say, God forbid you ever tear a bicep, but they always say 6 months after the bicep tear is a good time to start competing, or that's like when you're first. Anything inside, you might be a little bit of risk. But my 6 months after my surgery was pretty much like late November. So it was literally try to do OSG, which was as you know, a killer fest in the open, or kind of just wait out. But I've already done, I think in total I've done 6 OSG events. So I kind of just want to change it up a little bit. Just a tad. Yeah. But did you now since of course I know do you still have another 10 minutes? Are you still good on time?
No, I'm not busy. I got time.
All right. So I was thinking in terms of OSG this year compared to last year. Do you think the talent pool was jumped up from year to year?
I would agree with that. There's a lot of people I talk to that don't really understand strongman. So they're like, oh, you got 6th last year, you got 9th this year, and I'm like, on paper, I did worse. Like, there's no arguing that, and I didn't perform, and there was things that there's a little mistakes I made, and then I had a bad event. Obviously, I need to figure out bag toss or just throwing in general. But for me to compete and still make top 10 with a group of athletes that was there this year, I think that's an achievement in its own. There's a lot of people that are saying that like anybody in the top 10 could be thrown into a Giants live and hold their own. And I would agree with that. It depends on the events for everybody. And then you got people saying like, oh, he won Shaw, but only got 9th at OSG. Why is that? The simple fact of it is the events at Shaw were better for me than the events at OSG.
So OSG, at least the first 3 events, even the 4th event, all kind of featured like a very kind of typical strongman. So log, then you had a log, deadlift, and then even a yoke is very common. And then you had a medley, which is pretty much kind of like almost like textbooks, and normally what you would have in a strongman contest. When we competed, of course, we had the medley with the anchor yoke press. So that threw off a lot of people. So you kind of had to be pretty. Did you end up getting the anchor yoke?
Yes, I strict pressed inside. My knees weren't really working.
Good, because I would say people would try a thruster off it, and I realized you could thruster a regular yoke, but you couldn't thruster that one. So I messaged Tyson Morrissey, one of the Australians who had access to it. I'm like, what should I do there? He's like, just don't try a thruster, just try to either strict press or push presses. And I went with the push press. And then like, of course we had the deadlift medley, and I even beat some like guys that definitely would outpull me, but I just was better going through medley and going through each stage. So I think I feel like it was almost a different show, but I think I would say, given that there was 3 World's Strongest Man competitors that didn't make the finals, I would say the talent pool was probably a little stronger, but I would say every year over year, the events was always different. So I think it's just a tribute to your dedication and to your skill that you're able to make the finals year after year. So I think that's pretty cool. So we'll keep it up. So for anybody that doesn't know, so when we have the record, so right now we're live, but when I post the recorded version, Josh's Instagram will be in the description. So give Josh a follow and follow his journey. My next 2 guests I have Nicholas Hine, who took 2nd at OSG. He's next week, and then 2 weeks from now, I have the big thicket Trey Mitchell coming back on the show. So I'm pretty excited for that one. But let's see. Matt Hatter popped in. The next Tom Stolman, only good at 1 comp. Oh, he really loves World's Strongest Man, but he knows that. And Josh, you could comment that. I think he knows that he needs, for his legacy, he needs to perform or at least win the other majors. But
and I'm sure he's hungry to win the other majors too. Like, I mean, everyone wants to win Arnold. Everyone wants to win every show, but just showing up and competing there isn't enough.
Absolutely. And but Worlds is everybody, like, for instance, if you're if you're trying to explain strongman to someone, you say that guy is Rogue Invitational winner, but this guy is World's Strongest Man. what are you gonna think? You gotta think of the title. So
Yeah,
I think
100%.
sometimes people put their best peek into the World's Strongest Man,
Sure.
or whatever show they feel is their favorite or they're going forward. So thank you for all the members. Thank you guys for always tuning in and everything. And hey, another piece from Matt Hatter. Josh is a great strongman. Looking forward to what he does. Me too, Mr. Matt Hatter 94. And speaking of which, any plans in the future to ever put out a YouTube or start a YouTube account?
If I made this my full-time like career and job, definitely. If I had someone that trained with me that kind of could do all the editing and stuff, for sure, like I could do that now. But just right now, time-wise, I don't want to take away from things that help me physically for maybe more notoriety. Because at the end of the day, I mean, say I have 100,000 followers, I still have to show up and be able to compete at the show. So I'm still focusing. I'm still really early in my career. I'm still focusing on getting there. And then once I get there, I might shift a little bit of focus to on all the other things that go into it.
Absolutely, but yeah, I think I just started watching the Texas Boys. I'm glad that Austin and of course Nick Gardione are putting out some stuff, so I'll be happy to watch that. Canby shirts are available. I'm sorry I didn't have any 4Xs for you, but me and Tommy
really needed one.
Yeah, me and Tommy are working on it, so it'll happen. So to wrap up the show, what's one last piece of advice you want to leave the listeners?
I think at the end of the day, and this isn't related to strongman, this is just life, that you just need to be genuine and you'll be appreciated. I think there's too many people out there trying to fit in certain categories, and you just need to be yourself.
I like it. So don't force it.
Yeah. I mean, you'll end up wherever you're supposed to be. There's no reason to try and change.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming on the show and all the listeners. Till next time, stay strong.
Thank you, Canby.